in your packet. Hope you have time to go over them.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes for the meeting held on January 25th. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item B, report to commission on Visitor Information Center by the Center for Community Innovation. Mr. Barry.
Mayor and Commission, we have a couple of visitors at the meeting tonight. Caleb, the manager of the Visitor Center, and Anita, who maintains an office there on behalf of Grow Raton. And they have come to address the commission tonight to give you an update on activities at the Visitor Center. I think we're kind of at a point where we're coming out of a couple of years of weirdness as far as operating facilities like that. We're looking forward to a good summer of '22. We're trying to gear up for that, and we have aspirations of really being the best visitor center in the state of New Mexico. And so a lot of activity going on, a lot of discussion going on. But Caleb, Anita, I'll turn it over to you if y'all want to come forward, and they have a report for you on what has gone on, and then I think what's proposed at the center.
Cool.
So as Scott said, there are a lot of changes going on. We are starting I guess what would we call it? A refresh? We're kind of doing a soft remodel of certain areas in the visitor center. With the help of Jolene Green, who is not here, but she is helping us by pointing out some key areas where we could do a little bit better, and she is also, helping us address that as well. So, yeah. In your packets, I think you guys have a little bit of information about 2021. Obviously, we were open for a small period of time in 2020. I didn't include those numbers just because of how funky that year was. Same with 2021, that year was a little bit funky too, but we reopened in the middle of the year. I'm actually I guess I kind of want to say I'm proud of these numbers, mainly because they start in the middle of the year. And they come close to our 2019 numbers, which were roughly around 14,000 people that went through the visitor center, give or take a few, of course. So if we were to have been open the entirety of 2021, we would have far surpassed prior years. I think that's all I can think of. Also in the information provided, we took some key things that happened in 2021. A big goal for me at the Visitor Center was to kind of get some smaller events hosted there. I know we have the convention center as well for that kind of things, those kinds of things, and we will be pointing to that area as well. But we hosted about 4 major events, one being a job fair since 2021, June of 2021. We hosted a job fair that had about 15 or 16 employers show up, with 16 to 17 people also showing up, with a couple of them walking out with a job. We had a thing we called the after hours to get businesses to, come together and network with one another. And that went really well. We had about 65 people show up to that event. It almost broke our capacity, so we will be having that elsewhere this year, whenever they happen. Next one is in March.
Spoiler.
Yep. We had a small farmer's market, craft market kind of thing. We had about 7 vendors, with 4 regularly showing up. And we're planning on getting that set up again this year. We're working on the details, and they'll be posted somewhere soon. And then we've had a couple of volunteer potlucks to thank the volunteers that we have. We are opening now 7 days a week, from 9:30 to 4:30. We have hired another part-time person to help me on the days that I'm not available, or my days off, and when I have low coverage for my volunteers. So yeah, that's really it, I think. Unless you guys have any questions, and I'm more than willing to answer.
How many volunteers do you have currently?
Right now, I have 11 that are currently scheduled, and 6 more are expected to return in spring. Some of them leave Raton for the winter, and they come back whenever it gets warmer. So yeah. So, and we will be doing a couple more volunteer recruitment events, and I will be speaking on the radio about needing some more volunteers. So.
Well, as far as Grow Raton is concerned, we're very appreciative to have the office there at the Visitor Center. I feel it's a great place for us to be up front, close, personal with not only our visitors, but as well as the business owners in town. They can find us right away. We have a lot of clients coming in, and because of the networking, that extensive networking that Grow Raton does, it's a great way for us to be, I suppose, in so much an acting chamber to get information out to those that are coming in and want to know what's going on in town. So I'm able to, when I'm there, which is, you know what, I'm not going to put a percentage on it. I'm there when I'm there. If not, you can find me in town. So it's just been a really great opportunity for us to network with people and get them excited about what is going on. And if Caleb or one of the volunteers has not been able to answer the phone because they are in conversation with visitors in person, I am able to answer the phone. And again, we've been taking a lot of phone calls on what's going on in Raton, who wants to, you know, who's doing what, where can we go? And so it's just been a really good opportunity for me to connect with people too. So thank you so much for letting us have our office there. Been great.
Sure, anybody else have any comments? Okay, I guess I'm gonna play the bad guy.
Oh boy.
You know, as per your agreement, because we do give you funding, we are supposed to receive quarterly reports
Okay.
as to how the money's being spent, what's going on and all that. I have not seen a report in over a year.
Okay. Well, we can be
So-
sure to rectify that
That would
immediately.
definitely, because if questions come up with our audit and that, we have to be able to answer them ourselves.
Sure. Absolutely.
If you guys could, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm gonna be the good girl.
Oh, good.
Of course you are.
Fair.
And just tell you how much we appreciate the hard work you're
Yeah,
putting in and how painful we know it is to, you know, we're trying to create better curb appeal all over the community. And we know you guys are working hard, just as hard at creating better curb appeal at that visitor center. And we know you've got a lot of work ahead of you. And so thanking you in advance for all that work. And I know you've already started doing it, so.
And
Thank
that's,
you.
and thank you so much. I appreciate you pointing that out. You know, we understand that the city has a limited number of personnel to address and care for the buildings, which I understand are numerous, that the city takes care of. So if there's something out there that we can quickly pick up or make, we take care of that. So, I gotcha.
yeah, I'd just echo what the Mayor Pro Tem said. Yeah, you guys are doing a great job. We just need to see how you're doing it.
Okay, fine. Another report. Put that on the list. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. All righty, moving on. Item C, deliberate and act on public celebration permits for Blue Dragonfly Brewing for events at the Schuler Theater on February 25th and March 3rd. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, in your packet, you do have the application for a public celebration permit that will go to the Alcoholic Control, Beverage Control. This is for the 2 events that you mentioned at the Schuler Theater, and those are 2 separate events. So we would be looking at on February 25th, William Lee Martin, cowboy comedian. The service would commence at 5 o'clock and end at 10:30. And this would be managed by one of our local brewers, Blue Dragonfly Brewing. Also, on March 3rd, we would have Los Lobos, which we have anxiously awaited for about 2 years now, and we're going to have this Los Lobos event now, so a lot of people are excited about that. Also managed by Blue Dragonfly, and that would service would take place from 6 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. Fairly straightforward. They would be set up in the hospitality room that We had recently remodeled. I think that's working very well from the previous events. I can try to answer any questions, or we do have Michael Ann available to probably give you good answers to questions. So,
Any questions for Scott or Michael Ann?
No?
I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
That's okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the permits, the celebration permits for Blue Dragonfly Run for the two events, February 25th and March 3rd. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, deliberate and act on award of RFP and contract for airport engineering services at the Raton Municipal Airport. Mr. Barry.
Mayor and Commission, the engineering services contract at the airport is a very specialized professional services contract. We're required by FAA as well as state of New Mexico to ask for proposals every 4 years, evaluate those proposals according to statute and according to FAA guidelines, and select the most qualified engineer for that. On your tabulation sheet in your packet, you see that we did receive two proposals, Molden Corbin and Du Bois and King Incorporated. Molden Corbin has been the airport engineer at Raton Municipal Airport since the early 2000s, 2002, I believe. And the spread in the points really is related to Molden Corbin's knowledge of our airport, knowledge of our 5-year plan. We're involved in a number of projects currently with Molden Corbin. You can see that they were the high-scoring firm, and we have a lot of familiarity with that firm. Our recommendation, and you do have the recommendation for award from our Chief Procurement Officer, Michael Ann Antonucci, would be for Molden Corbin.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Barry. Any questions for Scott?
I'll make a motion to award the RFP contract for airport engineering services at Raton Municipal Airport to Molden Corbin.
We have a motion and a second to award the contract for engineering services at the airport to Molden Corbin. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, deliberate and act on bid award for street and maintenance contract. Mr. Barry.
Mayor and Commission, what this is an on-call annual contract where the city of Raton would like to have a contractor and a contract in place to do really projects that are minor in nature, more of maintenance in nature, not specifically capital improvements. And it's restricted to concrete, really. So this would be removal and replacement of curb and gutter, sidewalk, could be structural concrete, could be drainage facilities, anything where we have concrete or structural concrete involved. And so we have a number of projects that are smaller in nature, as we said, removal and replacement of curb and gutter, sidewalk, accessible ramps. We do plan on getting the steel wagon structure put back up with this contract. We have some sidewalk at the senior center to remove and replace. So it would be contracts, it would be projects of that nature. You do have well, let me back up. We received one bid, Archuleta Construction LLC. The bid amount, $74,000 and some change, is really based on an estimated quantity of those, and that would largely depend on when we choose to do the work and the contractor chooses to accept it. And one thing I would mention is this would be the contract we would fall back on if we had an offer from a property owner who wanted to replace curb and gutter, sidewalk generally at their property, and we have an ongoing cost-sharing arrangement with property owners. So a lot of times a property owner will approach the city, they'll say, hey, why don't you replace my sidewalk? And if we go by the priority of that project, it's probably down the list quite a bit. But a way that you can jump right to the top of the list is a cost-sharing arrangement. And so about once a year, a couple of times a year, a property owner will accept that proposition. It's generally a 50-50 cost share. Because of procurement that you had mentioned in the previous item, it's got to be really a City of Raton contractor at bid prices. So we would offer this contract to do that. And like I say, we have a couple of those projects generally a year. It's a good way for a property owner to get those things done that are in the public right of way. But to go to the top of the list, and it's economical for them, and it's economical for the City of Raton. So that would be another thing that this annual amount would hinge upon. So the $74,000, that probably would have some leveraging component to it. It's hard to say just what we would spend on it, but for bid comparison purposes, we put quantities in the bid and came up with that amount. So my recommendation and the recommendation of our city clerk and treasurer is award of this contract to Archuleta Construction LLC.
All righty, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Berry or Michael Ann?
I will move to approve the contract bid to Archuleta Construction LLC.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve to award the bid to Archuleta Construction LLC. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item F, deliberate and act on American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, grant to public libraries agreement for fiscal year '22. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, the short story is there are American Rescue Plan Act. Those are federal funds that have flowed to the New Mexico State Library. The New Mexico State Library has offered this agreement to the City of Raton for fiscal year 2022, in which the New Mexico State Library agrees to pay the recipient, the City of Raton, a grant in the amount not to exceed $17,828 on the terms that you see in the attached agreement. So Michael Ann is present to answer detailed questions that you have on this. It's a fairly straightforward offer for these grant funds that we can use for certain improvements and activities at our municipal library.
All righty, thank you. Questions or comments? Seems like a good thing.
Seems like
Pretty standard contract.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to accept the American Rescue Plan Act ARPA grant to public libraries agreement for fiscal year 2022.
Have a motion and a second to accept the grant. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item G, deliberate and act on appeal to City Commission on vacant building determination for property located at 201 Galisteo Avenue. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, we actually have under G and H an appeal of an administrative decision regarding a vacant building determination. And so similarly, we will have a presentation to the Commission for your consideration. What I would recommend, Mayor, is I'll give you a quick overview and background on the vacant building requirements with the City of Raton, and then we will let the owners of property located at 201 Galisteo address the Commission with the basis of their appeal. I'll be available on the part of the City of Raton to offer any clarifying information on that issue. And then under H, we have a separate appeal. So under G, we're talking about a commercial property. Under H, we're talking about a residential property. If I could kind of go into the background on this. This is related to Ordinance 1012. That's the vacant building registration ordinance with the Commission adopted back in April of 2021. Now, back then, we talked about the vacant building ordinance as a tool to address a number of problems that had come up during our planning sessions, and we had talked about this for a considerable amount of time before that adoption period. And so other tools that we would typically use to address things that came up specifically during the comprehensive plan update. We got a lot of comments related to the number of vacant buildings in Raton, the number of zoning violations, nuisances, dilapidated buildings, and in general, a condition of slum and blight. And so we have an ordinance regarding nuisances, dangerous buildings, zoning. The vacant building ordinance was an additional tool that really specifically talks about requirements for regarding vacant buildings. And I put a copy of that in your packet, and I've highlighted some areas that I anticipate we would refer to tonight. Generally, just in summary of ordinance number 1012, it would require the city to develop a database of vacant buildings. The city has done that and contacted the owners of those vacant buildings, and there is a requirement for the owners of vacant buildings that they would register that building annually with the city of Raton. There is a fee that is associated with that annually, and we anticipated that there would be some maybe some discussion on what a vacant building consists of. And so there is a provision that if we, from an administrative determination, could not agree with the property owner could come to the city commission. The city commission will act as the board of appeal to that. So we will talk about these specific cases tonight, and then the city commission can uphold the determination that it is a vacant building. You can overturn the decision that it's a vacant building. You can gather more information. You can do this on your schedule that you establish. If it's not tonight, it can be when you think it's appropriate. You can talk about conditions attached to the building. That's kind of a summary of how we got to this point. And I can say that we have been building the database and contacting property owners for generally about a 5-month period. We have identified more than 400 vacant buildings in the community. Property owners do have the opportunity to talk to staff, and we've made a number of those staff level determinations. Some of those we agreed with the property owner who said it's not really a vacant building for one purpose or another. We agreed with that. Largely, the discussion that we have centers around storage in the building. And so it's typical, as a matter of fact, I would say almost every time when we have this discussion of what constitutes a vacant building, the owner of the building will say, I use the building for storage. And we'll talk about specifics as we go through the discussion on these particular items. What I would like to do, Mayor, is return the floor to you. We do have some folks that are present that would like to address the commission. They would like to present their case for appeal. You do have a written report from these owners as well in your packet. This will give you a chance to ask questions, have a dialogue on the situation. So on the property located at 201 Galisteo Avenue, we do have a photo of that on the screen for you. And so that is located in our commercial zone. It's a building generally of a commercial nature. And Mayor, I'll hold it there.
All righty, thank you. Thank you for all of that. This time we will take comments from the property owner at 201 Galisteo. I would just ask, your time is very valuable, our time is very valuable. If we start repeating things, I might give you a hammer, but we want to hear what you got to say, and hopefully
Can we just stand up here?
Absolutely. Just address the podium, and please
Okay.
state your name for the minutes records, please.
Janice Pallage and Robert Pallage.
Thank you.
Did anybody read the letter we wrote?
Yes.
We do.
Okay, thank you very much. We have read the ordinance thoroughly. We understand the ordinance. I have studied the Main Street project for the state of New Mexico, as well as Raton's and nationally. We understand what the purpose of this is about, and we're contesting this. Don't take our picture, please. Thank you very much. We understand the purpose. We also understand that we have the right to have a building to perform the function that we desire for the building to be used in. This building we purchased approximately 10 years ago with the sole intention of Robert being able to have a place where he could go, work on our personal vehicles, build our race engines for our race car, build race engines for Kevin's race car. We also are in the process of his retirement, and he is going to be building 3 different classic Ford pickups. And so the building is not an empty, vacant building. We paid the city of Raton to come and put 3-phase electricity into that building. That was not just a frivolous little expense. That was a big expense. We have machinery in that building that cuts metal, bends metal, welders, tools out the wazoo. We put in a 3-post or 2-post lift and use that regularly. Robert right now is recovering from back surgery, and as soon as he's recovered, he'll be back working down there. This building has not been used for commercial business for 15 years or more. We did not buy the building to create a business. And so therefore, it is not going to become a business building. It is strictly for Robert to perform his hobbies. And that's all. We looked up and expanded on the ordinance definitions of some of these words that were used. Occupied, and this is in your little packet there. Occupied is being used by someone, busy, active. It is. Abandoned, left without needed protection or care. Dormant, an unused asset, shows neglect. It does not fall into that category. Vacant is having no fixtures, no furnitures, no inhabitants, and it's empty, which it is not. And I do have the pictures, which I did show some of you, and could show the rest if they're interested. Unoccupied is not used by someone, not engaged in work or in a pursuit. It is idle. That building is not idle. An occupied structure is a building for the purpose of sleeping, carrying on a business, or other pursuits and activities therein. Also for storage, safekeeping of anything of value, and then such a structure is an occupied structure, whether or not a person is physically present. So by those standards, our building is not a vacant building. We maintain it. It's kept clean inside and out. We clean the alley every spring. We try to keep it clean. Keeping that dumpster there is a nightmare because people around us are determined to put their trash on the outside of the dumpster, which leaves us picking it up and putting the trash for other people's trash in the dumpster. We had it clean and somebody dumped leaves over, and of course they're now in the corner of our property. So this spring we'll have to clean up somebody else's leaves, but it does not fall into that category. And there are differences in what you're looking at there and in some of the vacant buildings around town.
It has electricity, it has water, it has insurance. I mean,
Yeah.
Are there any comments or questions?
I certainly appreciate that you all take care of the building, that you don't have nuisances, that you help clean up the alley, and all the different things that you've done in your intentions there, absolutely. And I think we've probably all read every letter of what you wrote and really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we do.
Absolutely.
I do have a question. As you may have heard a little bit ago, we're even tasking, the operations like the Center for Community Innovation and Grow Raton. We've tasked them with improved curb appeal as well, because we feel that we have been tasked as commissioners to clean up this community and make it look better. And what you've done with the inside is phenomenal. So my question to you
It's not pretty from the outside.
Right, so my question to you is, do you have any intention in the future of working on just, it's not dirty, it's not, there's nothing terribly wrong with it, but it could use a smidgen curb appeal. Do
Well,
you
I don't
have
know
any
what you'd
intention-
put there for curb appeal,
Maybe
but
some rock on the bottom.
we've talked about putting rock across the bottom of it
Maybe
and making
some
it
kind of,
look
an
better.
appropriate signage can help.
well. We actually thought about that as well, but if you
Not
don't want business,
Right,
and we don't want people calling Robert at home and saying, "Hey, my car,
right,
my
understand
car's
that.
got this problem. Will you work on it?"
yeah,
And we've had people stop when we're there
yeah.
and say, "Hey, do you guys work on stuff? We could have you work on this." And it's like,
'Cause
really don't want to do
We
that.
do have other hobby buildings in town where they're well-maintained and well-kept, but we're still asking them to, kind of work on that curb appeal, make it look like the outside.
Put my
is-
pots of flowers out there.
Exactly.
Oh, I could do that.
She'd love to do that.
Sure.
Yeah,
We actually planted some irises on the side of the building.
and given that there's, kind of a space where it's obvious there was a sign, maybe a little.
Well, and
more
like I
paint.
said, we actually talked about putting, the race car logo is Boss Performance.
Uh-huh.
And
that
we
would be
actually
wonderful.
talked about taking the sign and painting Boss Performance
Sure.
on it.
Because I have the original
Sure.
John
Sure.
Bears
Or
11
even,
sign.
like college racing or something,
Anything.
Any,
Well, that's what it says. We could show you a picture of the car and then you could see. what it could
doesn't
look
have to be
like.
a viable business, but, like I said, we feel as though we've been tasked. I mean, we've hired consultants, we've gone to other communities, we've asked, retired legislative, individuals and looked at other cities and communities our size and what they're doing. We're not alone in this task
Oh,
across
no.
the country,
I read that.
not just in New Mexico, but
Oh, it's
across the
it's
country and
nationwide, yes.
trying to clean up and make us look better.
Well, if anybody has any suggestions as to how you make it look prettier,
Yeah,
I understand that. We did put gravel
think-
down, and it was
yeah.
originally a dirt,
Yeah, it- I mean,
dirt
it looks
beside that.
Clean, it just,
Ugly.
here,
Yeah.
yeah. You said it right there.
There you
You said
go.
it right there.
So I
Of
think
the
that's what
emails.
It's just an ugly green building,
Yeah, of all the emails I get, and most of them, unfortunately, are from former residents that are back on vacation, and they send me an email and said, "Neil, God, you guys gotta do something.
bad.
It looks bad, it looks terrible." So what, like Mayor Pro Tem said, just if we can spruce things up, it would solve a lot of things.
Yeah.
I like your idea about the flowers. I think a sign and maybe splashing
Sign
paint.
would be easy.
I think, that curb appeal to where somebody driving by doesn't think, "Oh, it's just another empty building," And,
Well, like I said, we did plant irises, and we've been gonna plant flowers all down the end, but
Sure.
it's like, don't know how you'd water
and
them.
this time of year is kind of the ugly time of year.
Sure.
But if we had that assurance from you that
We're
you're
open
gonna
to
work
any
on the
suggestions.
outside and make it look as nice as you've made the inside.
We
Yeah.
can do that.
And it doesn't have to, like I said, it doesn't have to be an open business. We're not trying to be punitive to our
Right.
hobby building owners. We need improved curb appeal.
Okay,
It's also, if you're aware or not, it's also been more than 30 years since we had any code enforcement in Raton.
oh, yeah.
And,
Well, like I said, we realize it is a problem.
yeah, and so they're gonna go after all the buildings, because we can't say, this one here is gonna do this and this one, so we're gonna have to do it all. What I would suggest to the rest of us tonight on this particular item is that we don't act on it tonight, that we talk about it and see what it is. I've seen the inside of it, I know it's a good-looking building, I know
Yeah.
what he does there, you know. So, but that would be what I would suggest for this commission, is to give us a little bit more time to
That's
tell you
fine.
what we should, what you better be doing.
Like I said, we're open to suggestions.
Like I said, size is-
Yeah, I think this has
Okay.
been a good fact-finding thing, and we're, like Mayor Pro Tem said again, we're not trying to be punitive to anybody. We just want to make the town look good again.
Well, can I make a suggestion then?
Sure.
Yes.
When you drive under the underpass at the south end of town,
Mhm.
if we could clean the weeds out of the bushes,
Yes.
that would be a great improvement.
Absolutely.
That is
We're not,
actually on the list.
yeah.
If we could clean the weeds out of the rocks, that would be a good thing, you know?
Yeah.
Not leave the stuff hanging under the underpass on this end of town.
We have
Like
a
it did.
long list for our.
We're not immune to this.
Our poor city workers, because we have a small crew, but we've got a long list for those guys. And
Well, we've had big plans for this building for a very long time. He's been working over in Trinidad at Pioneer and then Evergreen now.
Uh-huh.
And within the next year, that's coming to an end. So it's liable to be February of next year, but that's the plan.
And I'll be in there a lot.
And Mayor and Commission, if I could kind of give you, just add to this, the perspective of the staff that works on this every day. You know, there's a couple of things in the determination that I would point out is this was a commercial business. What a commercial business does is it adds to the local economy, the local tax base, offers services to the public, maybe a couple of jobs. We've seen a lot of those commercial businesses, especially along 2nd Street, just close, and they're typically used for storage. And so that's why the staff identified this as somebody that they would contact. It's not economically performing as a commercial structure would and generating income for the business or the property owner, or gross receipts tax for the local government. And storage is not, does not mean that the building is occupied under the terms of our ordinance. If the building is used solely for personal or private storage of vehicles, equipment, machinery, supplies, parts, or miscellaneous, without an active residential or commercial or industrial purpose, it is considered a vacant building. But the staff is willing to, have a conversation with people and try to find that reasonable common ground. And I can tell you that from my perspective on this, from city manager, and during my time here, we've focused a lot on infrastructure, especially downtown revitalization related infrastructure. We have focused on economic development, and as you all know, that can be a big challenge in rural New Mexico communities. Seems like we got one hand tied behind our back, or maybe both of them, very challenging. And this is something that was identified during the comprehensive planning, that we really can't turn the corner in Raton until we address this. And specifically, I think about visitors to our community driving down 2nd Street, and I wonder what kind of impression that they get. And so we do have, number one, a lot of vacant buildings. We have buildings in really poor condition. We have buildings that are owned by people that may not be here or understand what the impact is on the community. This is obviously, there's no nuisances associated with this building, but we try to treat everybody fairly and administer this in an equitable manner across the board. And so that's how this comes to your attention tonight. Now, I have told people in my meetings, and, you know, we've had a lot of meetings, and people say it's not vacant. I store stuff in there. I have vehicles in there. I have equipment in there. But it just does not address the requirements of the ordinance. But, you know, what we tell them is that casual passerby through our town looks at it, how would you look at any building, and this one included, would you say that that's an asset to the community or is it a liability? Would you get the impression if you drive through our town, down Second Street or through Clayton Road, any of our business districts, that this is a great, clean, really progressive little town that I might want to be a part of? Or do you say, let's get on the highway and let's keep moving on? And so we look at it from that perspective. And what I have offered to people in this conversation is the fee that you would pay, and it's a nominal fee, it's $100, it's the minimum amount we could put in there. Why don't you take that $100, invest in paint in the building, so that when somebody drives by that, they say, this looks like an active building. I think in this building here, you can paint, it's a steel building, but you could paint a building like that, just the walls. You don't have to paint the roof or the doors. And if we could have some kind of identifying, just so that casual passerby, I mean, they can't tell what's going on in the building. I had no idea what was going on in the building till I got the letter. And we look at it from that perspective is, what's the impact on the business community, the neighborhood, and the community at large? And what we're trying to impress, when we have a requirement that you register the building annually and you pay a nominal fee, is what we're trying to impress is, yes, you have the right to do whatever you want to with your property, but you have to recognize that that can have an impact, either positive or negative, on the rest of town. Everyone that owns a building in Raton has a responsibility to the community. Even if it's a little part of the overall picture, we all have some responsibility, and that's an acknowledgement that, oh yeah, I do have a responsibility to the community. So I'd rather see people invest in the upkeep of that, and, you know, really converting that to an asset for Raton, than collect a fee from people. And that's the discussion that we have commonly had here at City Hall. I'll offer that to the commission.
The problem with the fee is that the fee isn't just $100. It's $100 this year, $250 next year, $750, $1,000. When it doesn't change the usage of the building. That will never be a commercial building as long as we own it. We could put a business in there. Robert could be busy 24/7. That isn't what we want. This is bought with the intention of performing hobby work in there. We presently have all of the machinery in that building is functioning. It isn't just stored there. It's set in place. It is functioning. If you would like to come and see the building, you're all more than welcome to call us and come see that building. It is not a storage building. It has function. It has purpose. We grant that it isn't a beautiful building, but it is clean. It is maintained. It has water, electricity, natural gas. The water got shut off when Robert was not able to work. There's no need to be paying for the water. It freezes between the meter and the building.
You repaired it.
And so it's a waste. So that's why the water shut off. But we keep that immaculate.
And one more time, I would just mention, this is kind of a new concept to a lot of property owners we have, but we're trying to get people to recognize I do have some responsibility to what's going on in Raton. I think Raton really has a chance to turn the corner, to see some benefit from some of our efforts on economic development. You know, we've done a lot of infrastructure. We have a lot coming. I think we have an opportunity to be that town that everybody has in the back of their mind that they're looking at. But The cleanup initiative, I will generally describe, it's complicated. We have to treat everybody fair and equitable. We typically, hear that, it's mine should not be covered by this. It's not the first time that we get that, but you should look down the street at the other guy. We just like to see everybody kind of recognize, I do have a responsibility here to the community. So
Well, if you
that-
think
hopefully
that
that's the
if you think that
message
building
that
right
we are
there-
getting.
If you think that building right there is the reason people don't come to Raton, you're foolish.
Yeah, maybe, but.
But we
again,
acknowledge,
I'm sorry.
we do
But
acknowledge.
I'm sorry, but let me state this. Again, we tried to treat all of these properties fair and equitable. That's why we stated this is how it's defined in the ordinance. Our staff really tries to treat this fairly. You do have a fair amount of debate about, what should be covered by this, but we strictly go by the criteria that is identified in the ordinance.
And again, we did read the ordinance. We do know what the ordinance states, and we just expanded on your definitions. And they are building code definitions. They also came from the Raton Main Street projects. Not Raton, the New Mexico. And so we acknowledge all of that. But that building is not the eyesore that you're talking about. And by fining people, you're not getting at the root cause of these buildings being dilapidated and in bad condition. That isn't going to solve your problem, Scott. The problem comes from people not having the money to fix their properties. The problem comes from people not being physically able to take care of their properties and fix their properties. And what you let go this year compounds, and every year it compounds and gets worse. But you're not getting to the root cause of the problem. We are proud of that building. We're proud of what he's doing in that building. We intend to do more in that building. But when you're working 12 hours in Trinidad and you come home at night and it's dark, it's kind of hard to get motivated after getting up at 5 in the morning to go to work, to go down and work down there. Right now, he spends 20 to 25% of his time. However, the last 3 days, we've been down there pretty much all day, every day. And we're sorry that you don't like the way the building looks. And I think that we can put some flowers out there. If that's, and it would make it look better. Like I said, there's irises that I planted on the side of the building. It's just not a whole lot that you can do to make it look better. But it's been that way since it was built. So if that's the case, it's been an eyesore for its entirety of construction.
And I just, we're not calling your building an eyesore, That's not what the conversation down here. But we do have several eyesores in town. And we do need to get cooperation to get them cleaned up. That's all we're trying to do here.
Well, I understand that you guys understand that. I don't think Mr. Berry does. And we had this discussion before, so there's no point in rehashing it.
Well, we enacted this ordinance a few months ago, okay? And the ordinance is made, we have a comprehensive plan that we
I've
pay
got it
people
here as
to.
well.
And so what we're trying to do is, and a minute ago, we said we'd talk to you and we're not gonna jump on you and everything. You do a few things. That could be worked out all over town. But the fact is that we have an ordinance to follow. We made this, and it's a law for the city of Raton, so we act that this can also be changed. We can amend this ordinance, but we can't do it right now because it's not ready to be done. Also, we could do the fees. We could work on that too. But the reason I asked for the commission to wait a while on this is so that we could talk about this and how it's going to be done. And
I'm cool with that.
So, but that's why I would like to have more time for us to jump on each other privately. But to see,
Well,
because it is.
Like I said, in my letter, I said basically that I hope it is approached without bias.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we are approaching that with bias. I mean, we are approaching that with bias.
I think,
And
I think too also we have to understand that, so when we talk about your building as a commission, I think Mr. Berry also, I'm not discussing whether bias or no bias. In general, he gives us a huge background, and so that there's an entire education element of everything, not just with your building, but just in general with the ordinance and the laws. Like we tend to, a lot of us already know all this, but there tends to be a background so that the community gets a better understanding. I think there's some of that may have been misunderstood as directed at you.
well,
Some of
no,
that's
I
in the
think
back.
we have, Mr. Barry and us have kind of a troubled past maybe.
Well, what
And,
I'm,
well,
I
we
think-
feel like.
We're not gonna go into,
But
Yeah,
we're not
exactly.
gonna go with
As
that.
a-
I have no
Well,
idea what you're talking about,
Well,
but
as a commission, we definitely feel that, there, you know, that this ordinance is new. Just speaking for myself, there are some things we can tweak with that, you know,
Right.
as we move along.
well, that's why we're here.
Right, exactly.
And that's why
to
we
hear from
wrote the
people
letter,
is
so
good.
that we could explain why our building is different than the house that's directly next to it.
Right, and I think that's what's gonna happen with this ordinance, it's gonna take multiple conversations, so we can't say it's all one thing, it's all another thing, this is the only problem, that's the only problem. That's just not how it is. Each situation is unique, and it's important that we have that discussion as a commission sometimes, and as city staff makes their determinations, and we try to uphold what our staff is doing, as well as understand what, you know, property owners are going through. So I appreciate you coming.
We really do. We know it took a lot of time and effort, and you put in some research, and we appreciate that. And, you know, like I said, we got some consultation on this. There are other cities that, you know, have the, you know, increased fees, and some have a standard fee, and so that is one thing we've kind of committed to looking at, is the, possibly looking at the fee schedule.
Well, we have invested in this building, we have invested into its use, and it's not intended to be an empty idle building.
Right.
It is not intended to be a storage building.
Right,
As a matter of fact, Robert's got 2 engines in there right now that he's been building.
Yeah.
And like I said, if any of you'd like to come and actually see the building, we'd love to show you, because we are proud of that building.
yeah.
Okay.
We certainly don't want you to stop doing what you're doing in the
Oh.
building.
We won't.
Well, I would like, at this time, I think we've tried to explain to you what I felt we should do, so I would like to reiterate that we don't act or deliberate and act on this.
so you're
Tonight.
suggesting, you wanna make a motion to postpone?
I would like to make a motion to postpone this.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to postpone any action on this particular item G, the vacant building determination, located at 201 Galisteo. Is there any further discussion?
Do we need to have a specific time frame for that postponement?
Not for postponement, no. Tabling we would, but
Oh, no,
Tabling it, it just moves it in the same meeting.
Postponing usually have a date.
we can put one.
What do you think is a fair time frame?
It could take a couple of weeks, or it could take a month, you know, I think that if we really dwell into it.
You wanna, why don't we shoot for, what is it, why don't we shoot for the first meeting in March? Does that work with everybody?
Sure,
It's fine with me.
sure.
Okay, so at this time, we will have a motion to postpone action until the March meeting, the first meeting in March, which I'm assuming is around the 8th or 9th, somewhere in there.
It's usually the same,
Yeah,
That's what I propose.
all righty. So is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Mr.
Sure,
Jackson.
John.
All righty, thank you. Item H, deliberate and act on appeal to City Commission on vacant building determination for property located at 324 South 11th Avenue. Mr. Barry?
Mayor and Commission, this is a residential property located 324 South 11th Avenue. The residential property does have a little bit of a different perspective than a commercial property. You do see a photo of the residence on the screen. Again, staff has made an administrative decision that the building is currently vacant. From the data that has been collected by the staff, however, you do have an appeal from the owners. We do have some gentlemen here that would like to address the commission. They have submitted the basis of their appeal in writing to you. Gentlemen, I would call you forward if you can come forward and address the commission and state your appeal. I would then follow up again with the perspective of the administrative staff in making the determination, and then commission, once again, you all can have the option of upholding the determination, overturning the determination, gathering additional information, however you would like to approach it at that time.
All right, thank you.
Mayor?
If you guys could state your name and they carry on.
I'm Carlos Arioste, part owner. Me, my brother, my friend Bill are all associated with the house.
Okay?
My name is Bill Pichardo, and I'm a close friend and informal mentor to Carlos and Mac Arioste. You have copies of these letters that have been written as part of the ongoing process. I had a different approach in mind for discussing what we were going to talk about, but you obviously all have a copy of this letter. December 20th, the house is and has been consistently occupied since early in 2021. We sleep there, we wash there, we recreate there, things like that. And so it is consistently in use. It is safe, sanitary, not a fire hazard, and in compliance with all building codes. It is served by all public utilities, gas, water, sewer, and trash. All the charges are current. It is not abandoned. It is not under the orders of condemnation or vacant. No broken windows, no boarded windows. Largely furnished, no deterioration. All taxes are current, and property insurance is in effect with a liability coverage of $300,000. It presents no hazards, and it is structurally sound, having gotten a new roof at a cost of $16,000 in 2019. Carlos has stated in his letter, I've regularly and consistently kept the house in good repair and have kept the yard in good and attractive condition, regularly painted, yard mowed, no trash in the yard, reflecting pride in ownership and respect for the neighborhood. After he submitted that letter, Carlos received a letter from Mr. Berry, basically going through the philosophy and background on Ordinance 1021. Again, you have this, so I'm trying to go through this more quickly than it would normally take. You know, the intent of the ordinance includes recognition of a building owner's responsibility to the community and encouragement to improve utilization of vacant buildings. The ordinance defines a vacant building as a building or structure which is unoccupied and uninhabited, and a building or structure in which lawful activity, that is, the building or structure was designed for and built for or intended to be used for, has ceased for a period of 180 days, 6 months. Okay, his letter goes on to state that Carlos' letter fails to provide information that would indicate that the residence is currently occupied. In response to that, our second letter stated that the house had been consistently occupied for the bulk of 2021. The letter also requested that what additional information might be needed to resolve this question so that we could provide it, okay? In the absence of a response to that particular request, we've assembled the relevant documentation of insurance, property taxes, electricity, gas, water, sewage, and trash, all showing a large uptick in consumption in 2021. A good example, the billing for electric in the last month of 2020 was $10. The next month it was $81. The next month it was $109. This is exactly consistent with us finally making this house so we can live in it while we continued with the remodeling that we were doing. In conclusion, it's important to restate yet again that the house at 324 South 11th Avenue does not meet the definitions of vacancy set forth in Ordinance 1012. The intent of the ordinance, we feel, is a good one, but there is a danger of unfairly penalizing good people who have the integrity to show up for their civic responsibilities and have the determination and effort to make Raton a better place. Such is the case with the house at 324 South 11th Avenue. And I'm open for any questions. I have extensive records that show utilities ramping up and being paid for. I have pictures of some of the interior of the house that shows condition, occupation, bedrooms. I have all this. And I welcome your questions.
I can circulate those to the commission if you
Oh,
would
absolutely.
like to pass them around.
Do you want the invoices as well? It's Raton gas.
Probably would be good. We probably would talk about utilities.
There are taxes, there's insurance,
The gas.
the gas. Or we can put this back, I can just give you the whole book if you want it.
Whatever you would like the commission to see.
All right, let's do it this way. I hope you can appreciate that I'm not used to public speaking. It's kind of nerve-wracking, but there we go. This shows insurance in 2020, and this is 21. We have the property taxes, we have everything.
You'll give us just a minute to kind of look at things.
No, no, you're fine.
Well, Mayor and Commission, if I could kind of give you the staff determination perspective on this. And again, the staff is not trying to hurt anybody's feelings by making the determination that a building is vacant. We do have over 400 buildings that are vacant, and as you know, we have a real issue in Raton with all types of buildings, residential, commercial, and industrial. And so that's what you have tasked the staff with. So they are addressing that. In this particular building, you know, what we have to go by is really a knowledge of the building and evidence of what we see from the outside. We have had a conversation with the owners, and I appreciate you all, you know, keeping having a civil conversation with us and coming to the meeting tonight. Greatly appreciate that. I don't, again, want to hurt anybody's feelings by the statement, but we have entered into, for the commission's consideration, one additional piece of information, and that is we have looked at water usage and electricity. Those are the two city utilities that are metered, and you all have those records in front of you here. I'll provide you this, sir. But you'll see on the column called total consumption on the first page, that has to do with water consumption. Now, a water meter generally is measuring pretty significant volumes of water. So when you see the 1 there, that indicates 1,000 gallons. The total consumption is measured in thousands of gallons. And you can see from this that basically prior to June of 21, the meter didn't move. There was no water usage in the house. And since that time, for about the last 6 months, there have been a usage averaging about 500 gallons of water in the house. Now, an average household would be measured in the area of thousands of gallons, maybe 5,000 gallons, as you see a note from the utilities on there. And so that would indicate to us that any usage there is very, very minimal. On the second sheet, you see electric meter data there. Typically, a household would use 500 to 1,000 kilowatt hours a month. This would be a fully occupied house, and I think that what we're talking about is occasional occupation. But you do see that ranging in many months from 20 to 40 kilowatt hours, and then there's a few months that there are several hundred kilowatt hours, but generally this is well below what an average household would use. We can talk about the partial occupation of it or the occasional occupation of it. I think that's something that we'll let you all make a determination on, but obviously the household is not continuously occupied. The very first criteria in the ordinance is that the house is occupied. And so those are the factors that led to the determination on this house. That's really the information that I would offer to the commission. And you, sir, there's the meter data that we have submitted to the commission. I'll hold up there, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, any comments, questions? Because looking at the meter usage, it's obvious, especially the first half of 2021, no one was in the house.
But you can see it is ramping
We were in the house 3 weekends out of 4
up.
for the last few
Okay.
years working on the house. We were here primarily on weekends. And you can see, particularly from the water, there's no lawn, there's no irrigation. Okay, there's the shower and toilet and all that kind of thing, so there's that kind of use. But that's really all that's going on there right now.
There is no landscaping, and that's, in the real high users, that's typical. If you get into 10 or 20,000 gallons a month, it's irrigation water. So
There's xeriscape kind of landscaping in front, as you can see, but there's no irrigation or watering of lawn or anything like that.
Which I would think would be better to save water than to be wasting water on watering lawns.
Sure, and we're only using that for the purpose of trying to determine, from what the evidence we have, is the house occupied? And so, that's what that's what the determination is based on. That's what we present to the commission, and so I guess I would ask, on what frequency is someone living in the house? If we took a typical month, how many days of the year, or, what's the pattern?
9, 10, we've been there since, for example, this weekend, we've been in that house since Friday. Okay, we don't cook there, we go to restaurants, we stimulate the local economy. We wash, we sleep, and we continue to work on this house with the eventual goal of having it be a retirement home.
For all three of us, yeah.
Now, similar to our previous appeal, we would like to, have direction from the commission that will allow staff to apply the ordinance in an equitable manner. In other words, the precedent that the commission would set here, we would apply across the board to the hundreds of other cases that we have. And so we have talked about certain situations where there is part-time occupancy of a residence. We've made some accommodations to a couple of homeowners. It wasn't clear to us that this would qualify. We'll let you all talk about that a little bit, but I think we have made an accommodation for less than full-time occupancy on a few residents.
Any questions?
I think you know what I'm gonna come at you with, just like I told the other litigant that give us time to knock this around. We weren't aware, we saw the pictures that you showed, that there's beds and stuff in there, so if you give us a little bit of time, and then we're gonna come at you hard.
You can do that.
There you go.
I mean, we've got nothing to hide.
Yeah,
And we were just sort of blown away when this sort of came out of the blue, as I guess a number of people were.
And from the street, it's not an offensive building at all.
No.
So, but because we've been by there, but I just wanted you to, and I would like to do the same thing, is make a
Motion to postpone?
motion to postpone this.
If there was any, it would help you at all, with a little bit of notice, I think we'd be happy to let you walk in the house and look around. You know, we've been working on this house for a long, long time, and it shows it.
And that's definitely the kind of activity we don't want to discourage. We want homes to be improved on and, turned into something better. So,
Do you all have a timeline on when you might be able to be there full-time for retirement purposes, or?
I've owned an auto repair business in Boulder for 41 years. It's soon. You know, for just what it is, so there's some time left to enjoy life. This town is a world away from Denver and Boulder, which is where I'm from. I can't wait. He's probably more than 10 years away from retirement. This is a little consortium of people that, it's a retreat right now, and it will, I would hope to be in there within 2 years.
A project we're gonna start this next weekend is redoing the kitchen, and you probably saw, we have kitchen cabinets in the living room right now, but we're gonna do the floor, then we can move our cabinets in, and we can set up for a stove, refrigerator, and that kind of stuff. So hopefully we'll have that in a few months.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I would like to reiterate that we postpone it same time as the last one.
Okay. We have a motion to postpone till the March 8th meeting. Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, we have a-
What would you like from us in advance of that meeting?
Give us time to talk it over. We've seen the stuff, and then we can get a hold of you. If one of us wants to go walk through with you,
You'd be welcome.
we can do something like that.
I think that's probably something we would like to do because, there's a little bit of discretion in the ordinance for the staff, and it's really, if we're progressing to that goal and we understand there are improvements, reconstruction of houses, that's gonna be a factor in there. So that's one area that, the ordinance gives a little discretion. If we could have some of our staff here at the city meet you there sometime, and I don't know what would be good for you, but that would be helpful.
We are here every weekend,
Okay.
almost without fail.
Okay, like a Friday, would that work, or is it strictly Saturday,
It's
Sunday? or
strictly Saturdays and Sundays on our normal routine.
Okay,
But if we have 48 hours notice.
Yeah.
He's in South Denver, I'm in West Denver, Mac is in Albuquerque.
well, we don't want to inconvenience you, we can make it work on a weekend.
Yeah.
We love to come down here.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah,
So,
okay, so
if-
we're very cooperative if that unfolds.
Okay.
and I think we all feel we want to, we appreciate the time that we both have put into this. There's nothing like enforcement, and like Commissioner Chavez stated, this is, the enforcement is new. There's nothing like enforcement to show the lint on the fabric of the ordinance, so. We need to we're working on this as well as you're working on that property, so,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time,
Appreciate
for
it.
coming to us.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye to postpone. Aye. Opposed? I forgot what it was. All right, motion carried, thank you. All right, moving on, item I, deliberate and act on an agreement between the City of Raton and Department of Finance and Administration for capital appropriation to purchase a ladder truck. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, this is a grant agreement related to a capital outlay awarded to the city of Raton in the 2021 New Mexico legislature. So that's a year ago. And the appropriation was for $1,100,000 to design, construct, purchase, and equip a ladder truck for Raton and Colfax County. Upon your consideration of this, we did talk about this at the last meeting a little bit. Believe it or not, $1.1 million will not buy a ladder truck, and we'll have to finance the rest through New Mexico Finance Authority. So that was accomplished at the the last meeting, but upon your consideration here, we will move towards getting the notice of obligation from local government division and making the purchase. We would expect that once we issue a purchase order for the equipment, there will be a lengthy lead time on this piece of equipment, like more than 12 months. And so your consideration of the agreement today would initiate that process.
All righty. Any questions for Scott?
I'll make a motion to accept the agreement between the city and the Department of Finance Administration for capital improvements for the ladder truck.
We have a motion and a second to accept the agreement. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed?
Mayor and Commission, I would also state that, the legislator reminds us that once we award money to you, it's important that you move fairly quickly with it. We would have no outstanding appropriations with the legislature with this. When we gain the NOO, this will be the last appropriation that we have that would require obtaining the notice of obligation. So we would be in current and good standing with
Cool.
anything awarded to Raton previously.
Good job. All right, item J, deliberate and act on resolution 2022-7, budget adjustment number 7, fiscal year 22. Michael Ryan.
Mayor and Commission, in your packet this evening is budget adjustment. Earlier this evening, you did approve the American Rescue Plan Act agreement for public libraries. So we are going to be adding a couple new line items to the budget for that funding. I did want to mention that, I don't know if you noticed in the agreement, but there is a short window to spend the money, and all funds must be spent by September 30th. So we'll work with the library. It's possible that we may spend it all in this fiscal year. If not, we'll have to rebudget for whatever the balance is for FY23. Also, we did close on the loan with the New Mexico Finance Authority for the Cimarron pump station upgrades. So we will be adding a new debt service fund to our budget, and then also budgeting for the bond proceeds and a line item for capital outlay to pay the vendor for the work on that project. And then also you'll recall that we are pledging an increment of our supplemental gross receipts, water gross receipts tax for that repayment of that NMFA loan. So the intercepts, because the loan payments are due on May 1st of every year, we are going to reflect a transfer for the intercepts March through June, and then the principal and interest payments will be for that first payment that is due May 1st. Is there any questions?
No, it's pretty much in order. I'll move to approve resolution 22-7, budget adjustment FY7, FY22.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2022-7. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item K, city manager report. Mr. Barry.
Mayor Commission, I have a brief report for you. Primarily, I'd like to talk about the activities of the New Mexico legislature. They are currently somewhere in the middle of a 30-day session. The session will end at noon on February 17th. There is certain legislation, I think, that we have talked about, and we've been notified by Municipal League in regard to. 30-day session is difficult for some of this controversial legislation to make its way through. But I think that if a bill is jumping out to us, or we're brought to our attention by Municipal League, it's really something we're going to see in next year's 60-day session. And so we should probably consider where we stand on some of these things. I know that Commissioner Chatterjee, you did attend the Municipal League Day in Santa Fe, and Mayor, you've talked about things through the Mayor's Caucus, and I've tried to distribute the Municipal League bulletin to you all regarding the legislation. There are a couple of things there that are generally concerning to local government. And if they don't go this time, you know, I'd say they're probably coming back. Mostly what I would talk about is capital outlay. We have had actually good communications with our state delegation in regard to the capital outlay. As you all know, representation in Raton in the House of Representatives has changed somewhat. Raton is really split into two districts. So the west part of Raton generally is in Representative Roger Montoya's district. The east part of Raton generally is in Jack Chatfield's district. And so we've had good conversation with Representative Montoya. We've had a lot of conversation with Senator Campos. I think that's encouraging. Of course, we have a lot of capital outlay that we're anxiously awaiting the answer on, and I would expect that we'll have some word on that towards the end of the week. And so, to me, that's kind of the largest thing is the support of the legislature and the administration as far as some of these critical initiatives that we've identified for them. Something that the staff is doing now, we're working on potential funding opportunities through NMDOT. There's quite a bit of funding that will be available throughout the year for various DOT opportunities, so we're looking at those. We'll talk about those in the upcoming meeting. And then there are a lot of opportunities through the federal government and some through the state government related to bipartisan infrastructure legislation. And so some of those funds will really not be available until later in the year at various times throughout 2022, but we are looking at some of those funding opportunities right now. And so we'll talk about some of those as we go along too. Generally, what I'm leading up to at the commission is I think that when we get into the March meetings, we talk about where we're at on a lot of these initiatives, especially infrastructure. We have a lot of infrastructure going. I've updated you on a couple of projects here and there through the winter, but we have a lot to talk about. So I anticipate submitting a comprehensive report to the commission, and that will be after we find out what the New Mexico legislature does during this current session. And we'll also talk about some of these funding opportunities, but we have a lot of things in the hopper, I would say. And then also economic development opportunities. We've talked about some of those through the last year or so. I think we'll have a session where we generally get caught up on all of those things that are going on. So I would prepare for that and have a presentation to the commission in March, and maybe bring some of the staff in to help with that presentation and make that information available to the community as well. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Chatterley, anything you'd like to report?
Just a comment about, it came up at the board meeting after the municipal day about the infrastructure package with the state, and there is some concern that there might be dragging of feet, you know, there's not a lot of information out there. And everyone expressed that same concern, so the league's very aware of that. And after the session is over, we'll probably work on getting some information there. And then Mayor Tim Keller from Albuquerque was there and had some really good comments. One of the things that he shared is any municipality in the state that's interested in working with him on crime statewide, you know, he doesn't want what's happening in Albuquerque to get worse and trickle down the rural communities, and is concerned about the outlying areas being affected. And so he offered, just if anyone's interested in having that conversation, he'd be happy to put together a group to discuss that. So I thought that was a good offer.
Alrighty. Commissioner Giacomo. Commissioner Chavez.
I'm done.
Mayor Pro Tem.
No, thank you very much.
I'll just say one thing. The Mayor's Caucus did meet today, as well as the Executive Board of the League. We have some concerns on House Bill 163. That's where the governor wants to pat herself on the back and say, I'm dropping taxes by 0.25%. But when she does that, it's going to handcuff the municipalities. We will not be able to have the authority to determine where our tax breaks go for 5 years. For 5 years. So like Scott and I discussed, we've already used up all of our allotments. So it may not affect us, but other communities it will affect. The state, of course, created a safety net for them if their income drops below 5%, they can initiate to go back with the tax, but there is no safety net for the municipalities. So the letter has been constructed by the mayors and mayor's caucus. I have agreed to sign on with that in support of, not in support of the bill, but in support of being against the bill. But that was pretty much it today. That's the big one going on. That's all I have. This meeting's adjourned.
Can we all see your scar?